Hey, it's Monday, March 9th, 2020, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. As always, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Trying to encourage people to be better citizens, okay? So you have to ferret out the truth these days, which means normally I would look at multiple sources of information. Notice I didn't say the news, because a lot of these channels of information really are mostly rhetoric these days, mostly opinion, and not the who, the what, the where, and the when. Now these channels of information, these websites, or some of these shows that you might watch on a particular cable TV network or whatever, they do provide some of the information, the actual news, the who, the what, the where, and the when. But then they very quickly toss it to a panel of so-called experts, and those experts then talk about, well, what they think it means, and whether somebody is in trouble or shouldn't be in trouble or whatever. So lots and lots and lots of opinion, but no, very, very little fact. And I've talked about this many times in the past. It's because these channels have 24-hour news to cover, basically, and the news that actually goes around the world at this time is normally can be summarized for most of us, the stuff that we care about, in maybe 30 minutes. So 15 to 45 minutes, depending on the detail, for each individual, typically around 30 minutes, and that's enough. And that's 30 minutes of the who, the what, the where, and the when. Okay. And then the rest of the cycle, the rest of the 23 plus hours, they just fill it with talk, blah, 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 talking heads, blah, 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 blah. And they're, pressing their hot points. They're trying to, these people have their own agendas, and they're using some of our hot buttons to make sure they divide us and keep us segregated, because, it's much easier to keep 45% of the population basically in your corner by, pushing the buttons of gun control or abortion rights, or there's a very, some of these most emotional issues that they use very simple labels, Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative. Very simple labels and very simple messages, they're trying to kill all the babies, or they're, they won't let women have any choice, on and on, right? And so keep that 45% on either side of the divide, and then it's like the 10% in the middle, roughly, that they fight over, and they try to, and the way our country runs at the moment, even a slight majority means that people can. A simple majority often means a law will pass versus not pass. But all that said, today's show is called, talks about transitions. And the reason why I want to bring up this thing about transitions is we go through different transitions, and they can be pretty hard sometimes. So one of the, there's a group called Shift in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I've been attending some of their meetings over the course of some months, because it's a group of people that, middle-aged, maybe a little bit older than that, but anyone is welcome. And these are people that are making transitions of all kinds, okay? Sometimes it means they're transitioning into retirement. Sometimes it means it's transitioning from one job to another. Maybe they're making a big career change. All these things are transitions. And so you think about, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, here's where we are, and here's where we want to be. And how do you make that transition? And, it helps to talk that through, and it helps to have people just kind of propose things. And so in my particular case, I've been looking at, and people I've been talking to, it's not just me, it's dozens of people I've been talking to, we're fed up with the rhetoric and the hate and the vitriol of this segregation of us, basically driven by the political parties and their agents, pressing our hot buttons over abortion and gun control and so on, and keeping us apart, keeping us from having real, meaningful discussion, which is what we need. Real, meaningful discussion. And we can have it. Just all we got to do is just for a moment put the emotion away and say, listen, I understand whatever the significant issue is. Tell me how you got where you are, right? And let me share how I got where I am. And then I'm sure there'll be a lot of information that's uncovered, and that additional information will help us get on the same page, help us, achieve a meaningful discussion about how to go forward on some of these very serious and significant issues. In other words, I've said many times, the truth does not fit in a 4-letter or a 4-word bumper sticker or in 280 characters on Twitter. Okay, the truth is complex. So a lot of the parties and all that I've said many times. Again, you can look at my old videos or my future videos, and I will talk about how the political parties are really driving us into this almost silly. So you have, every election cycle, you get, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 2,000 potential people that would fill the various vacancies in this very strong structure that our founding fathers set up. So the structure that's in the Constitution, this balance, checks and balances and stuff, it seems to be quite robust, because we've had some really bad people at various times over our history. We know we have, and yet the structure continues. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it continues. Okay? And it shows how strong the structure is. We just have to fill it with better people. And the way to fill it, the way I propose to better fill that, is to take and cast a net every handful of years, election years, and then just like jury duty, people are compelled to provide information to the rest of us, basic information, blah 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 blah, education, work history, maybe some references from people that know them, and so on. And then all of us look at that information, and pretty soon we're going to find, well, these people, some of them have better education, some of them maybe have military leadership experience, which some of us may or may not, but value. But step by step, we'll all look at this information, and then we'll sift out right away some numbers of these people that these are better candidates and these aren't. So sorry, people, we don't need some of you. And then the rest of them, once we put them through some initial screening, then they would participate in some more stepwise screening, where maybe they sit and answer questions in town halls, or they just do like a debate or whatever. We can have this thing. Again, this is some suggestion, but step by step, then what we have is the people get elected, just as they do now, and they get elected for a period of years. And just like jury duty, once you're done being elected and you've served your time, you've served a few years in whatever office, you go home. That's it. There's no re-election, no big money, no attack ads. All of this is done. The submission of the information into this database and us viewing it and all that is all done in a very secure system that every single American can access. And we have all these devices now anymore that fingerprint readers and facial recognition and so on, so we can make it quite secure, where we know people are only accessing it and maybe voting. They're voting once, and we know where they're voting, and that's it. So all this stuff about concerns about multiple people voting and dead people voting and all that, we can take care of all of it by just having a good, solid, centralized system where we start with, we cast a fairly wide net at the beginning. We sift through that. We get some of us, some of peers, people like me, people like you. And so what I'm suggesting is then, right now, where we are is what I call Democracy 1.0. It's, we wrote this, 230, 240 years ago. We wrote the Constitution, immediately amended it fairly heavily. And since then, we've amended it 27 more times, or, we'll keep calling me here. 10 initially, and then 17 more times since then. And, but we're having trouble putting good people into that structure. So what I'm calling this is Democracy 2.0, the era of the citizen statesman. And so we amend the Constitution one more time, and we actually talk about specifics around how we fill the structure. Democracy 2.0. Okay? So the question is, how do you get from Democracy 1.0 to Democracy 2.0, given that we have these two political parties, and they are run by dozens of wealthy, powerful people, influential people who probably are not going to be that excited about giving up that power and influence. And so in the end, you need people that are just, one, we all got to talk about it. We got to talk to each other. We've got to be good citizens and talk more and more about this Democracy 2.0 and the citizen statesman kind of concept. But then it seemed to make sense to me that we could use somebody in the office of president. So we have us down below clamoring for this, and we have a point at the top of the organization, if you will, that's also clamoring for it. And so I had volunteered to be that president. And so at the moment, I am what I call an electoral college candidate for president. I'm not running, I'm not selecting, I'm not getting donations. I really don't want to be president. In fact, many of you people out there, if you're watching this video, I would be very happy if any one of you would want to do this for us. But basically, take on the role of President of the United States and help, us overcome the gap here. So there's 535 individuals here, members of Congress and the Senate, and we're going to have to work on both sides of them to get this future, this much better democracy than we currently have. And I tell you, folks, I guarantee you that once we had Democracy 2.0, our lives would be so much better. All of the, hate and anger and arguing and stuff like that, we'd still talk about the issues, and there'd be a lot of discussion. But what would immediately disappear is all of the big money and the special interests, piling money in, and people talking not because they believe in what they're saying, but talking because they're supporting some group, some special interests, that's their talking points. Instead, it would just be us. It would be people like you and I that would be just doing our dead level best in the office that we're in to represent people and do the right thing. We take an oath of office, and we'd say, we just promise to do to the best of our ability, not perfect, to the best of our ability, we're going to do the right thing for the American people. And then, at the end of our term, whatever number of years it might be, that's it, no re-elections. Okay? And one last point about that. So, for example, in the House of Representatives, they get elected every 2 years. They serve a 2-year term, they get reelected. So they're constantly being elected or reelected. And the focus of these people is not on serving their constituents. The focus is on getting reelected, because the people that we are electing, the way that we're electing them, you have to have a significant component of your personality who would be king. I hope you'll understand that in order to go through the gauntlet of all the crap that you have to go to in order to be elected to government office these days, in order to do that, you've got to be looking at, oh, what do I get for that? Oh, I get wealth, influence, and power. And and only people that really are dedicated, some significant portion of their personalities are dedicated to the idea, well, I would be king. I'd love to be king. Those are the people that our current system attracts. And wow, we get some really bad ones, And so one last comment before I sign off is we've had 45 presidents of the United States over the course of our history. And so 45. And you can look at our history and maybe you can come up with 5 presidents that were really good ones. And that means the other 40, meh, or okay, mediocre at best or bad, okay? And you know it. You know it. If you've had any time or studied any history of this country, we've had a very few presidents that people would say, wow, they were really good presidents. And then the rest of them are meh or eh. So we could do, I guarantee you, I know plenty of people in my life, co-workers, neighbors, family members. Any of these people would have been much better than a lot of the representatives in the House of Representatives or senators in the Senate or even President of the United States. We could be so much better. We could do so much better. Citizen statesman, Democracy 2.0, 20th Amendment to the Constitution, laying out how that happens. So until the next show, my name is Michael James Ott. This has been the Pro and Con Show. And until the next show, bye for now.